So we're here at the Simpsons restaurant in Brooklyn, New York, and it's our first staging of our immigration summit. We'll be going over so much, so I'm so excited to get this information out to the people of New York City. Let's dive in. This is our first of many in New York, and I'm very humbled that you're going to share this time with me. So my goal is to share with everybody just everything immigration, from strategies, from pitfalls, but more importantly, in an election year, how it's going to affect you as an immigrant, right? So first question, is anybody in here that is not from Jamaica? Okay. All right. And do we have people from Queens, Long Island, Manhattan? Okay. All right. So just a little bit of everywhere. Okay. All right. So we'll be having this presentation going, and because of the way how this room is set up, it's going to be very interactive. Right, so I may ask you questions, and if you want to ask me questions, please feel free to just raise your hand, and we will definitely make some clarifications for you. All right, so it's going to be very intimate. I'm going to be walking around, and I'm going to be asking people to just to see if you understand, and please feel free to ask me any questions. So, a little bit about me. I don't know if anybody knows anything about me. Does anybody know which sport I did at some point in time? 400. Huh? 400 meters? All right, do you know my time? No. I'm just kidding. All right, so born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica, came to the US as an F1 student on a track and field scholarship to the University of Florida. Ran for Jamaica a couple times. Then after I graduated from college, I did my master's, and then I went to law school. Started out at a personal injury law firm. From that personal injury law firm, I went to an immigration personal injury law firm where I started their immigration department. So when they asked me to lead this immigration department, my experience at that time was limited to just doing paperwork, like any document preparer was just doing green cards. And the first day on the job, I was sent to the immigration court to do a removal proceeding for a Jamaican that was detained for a felony, and it was my job with zero experience to try to get him out. So one of the biggest things for me with how I fell in love with immigration was from that case, it taught me everything I needed to know, from the way how criminal charges can affect your immigration status, from the things that may put you into deportation, from strategies if you have a wife or a sibling that is a US citizen and how that can help you if you're facing removal proceedings, and also knowing the pitfalls if you're eligible for citizenship and you don't utilize it at that time. So that one case, it lasted for over a year, and it really taught me a lot because nobody taught me how to do it. I really had to fly, research, but it was either sink or swim, because as you know with immigration, the difference between immigration and criminal, which I've had to explain to US citizens who don't understand immigration, is that to us, being deported or not having the proper documentation is not having freedom. It's pretty much the same thing as someone who did something criminal and they're losing their freedom behind bars, but you know what? They can come out and walk in the US and still have an opportunity to rebuild their life, right? But for us immigrants, not having the proper documentation, which I've been there, I mean, you get up every day and you feel this cloud over your head And there are people who know, and they're using that against you to making you feel less than a normal human being that's here in the US, right? That is how it feels, and people don't know that that freedom to immigrants mean more than anything. So that's what I've built my firm on, right, is people having to understand what freedom is like. So everybody in my staff has been through the immigration process one way or the other. All 16 or 17 people in our staff from our offices in Orlando, New York, Panama City Beach, Fort Lauderdale. Well, the people in Kingston don't. Well, unless they're were deported. But other than in my Kingston office, but everybody else has been through the immigration process, because I think it's extremely important that if myself or my team is going to represent you, they have to feel what freedom feels like, having it or not having it as an immigrant. All right? Any questions? No? All right. Let's keep it rolling.
Play.
So the first thing that I wanted to touch on is 2024, where we are. It is an election year. And a lot of my clients and my potential clients, they do not understand the gravity of what it means. So in terms of an election year, what does it mean for you as an immigrant? And again, there are different types of immigrants, right? In terms of what's your classification? I mean, are you a family-based immigrant? Are you in the country based on asylum? Are you seeking to change your status through a family member? Or are you a business owner? Are you somebody who does sports? Are you somebody that is an investor? So there are different types. So when we look at that, what does it mean with immigration in an election year? So currently there is a Democratic Party, right? So when I started practicing, we were just transitioning from the Obama era into the Trump era, right? And what happened, that saw a huge change in terms of restrictions in terms of changes in laws for asylum. He was almost able to take away birthright citizenship, meaning that how people can get citizenship just by being born here. COVID was used as a tool to eliminate certain type of petitions, such as if you wanted to petition for your parents or certain family members, that was significantly limited. However, on the other side, what that president did is he made it significantly easier for immigrants who were specialized, who had degrees and who were coming here to do high-level jobs. So there were pluses and minuses. I mean, I feel like there were more minuses, right? So then it shifted over to Biden, right, which is a Democratic Party. And as you can see, there were significantly more flexibility as to immigration. First thing, several countries got TPS, such as Venezuela. You had the change in the asylum laws, and I know recently you saw that he made the concessions for people who have been here for 10 years, who are married to a U.S. citizen, but they had an uninspected entry. They now have a pathway. So in both parties, there will be significant changes. So what to expect if Mr. Trump and his team goes in? Well, I know he said on his agenda, one of the first things that he wants to do is he wants to immediately remove 11 million immigrants who are here illegally, right? So who would that affect? That would affect people who are not only order status, but people who have already been ordered removed from the country, people who already had a removal order. So if you know somebody, or if this person is you, this is something that you want to definitely address. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed is that a lot of people, they have been through immigration court and they don't even know that they had a removal order, right? They've been living for years and did not know that there is a removal order entered against them, or they didn't even know that they were in removal proceedings, right? And my job over the last couple of years is to provide this information, that there's a number that you can call where you can call the immigration court and you can know if your case is in removal proceedings, and you can actually get a status as to if you were ordered removed. Because the thing is, if you're ordered removed and you haven't filed any type of motion, there's nothing that an immigration attorney can do to save you. So definitely in this era, you have to have your immigration situation together. If you've had a case denied in the past and you're just sitting on it hoping for it to go away, it won't go away on its own, right? You have to take the steps to try to figure it out, right? So in terms of immigration court, there is a number that you can call. Second thing, and y'all would be very, very surprised the things that I've been seeing this year that has significantly increased. What has increased is people getting randomly picked up by ICE, right? I've seen this spike over the last 6 months where ICE is showing up at people's houses. And I know you're going to think to yourself when I say this. The biggest perpetrators for ICE coming to pick people up is not ICE, it's actually friends and families. You know, and a lot of people don't understand that. So if you're in this country and your immigration situation is shaky and it's wobbly, you don't want to let everybody know that, right? I mean, I've gotten so many calls. I get that a recording, such and such person is calling from ICE detention. Do you want to accept this call? And they don't know how they got there, right? They weren't in the system, but 95% chance that it was a friend or a family member, you know, as we say in Jamaica, bad mind, that reported this person. So that is something that you have to take into consideration, because in this era, in this election era, right, it is going to be harder to get out of immigration detention, right? So definitely something that you need to keep in mind. You don't have to tell everybody your business, right? Welcome, 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 welcome. You can just take a seat anywhere. All right. All right, so I know I've been going on. Anybody have any questions? Sir, what's your name? Huh?
Winter.
Winter?
Yes.
Thanks for coming, thanks for coming. I see you taking some notes. Well, what has stood out to you more so far?
Just random stuff. ICE,
Okay.
work because of limited resources. They work, targeted, but
Okay.
they're saying that they,
Yeah.
I don't know, they active, for one person, unless they have,
Absolutely.
records and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. And Leslie, you can speak on some of the recent cases that we've had come through the office where person gets a knock on the door and it's ICE agents that are outside, right?
Yes. Well, we had a case recently, so somebody who came in and just knocked on the door without, and I mean, we always advise the clients, you're not supposed to open the doors right away.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
This is why, and I know Mr. Clarke already touched a little bit about this, but this is why it's important. You have a lot of document preparers out there doing this type of work papers and for people, and this is, when it gets to ICE, it's a removal proceedings.
Correct.
So people are in deportation, you need an attorney, experienced attorney to deal with that type of case. And and it has come from other people that unfortunately did their paperwork and it was done incorrectly. So
Okay.
we do
Yeah.
face that.
Yeah. And I'm glad Leslie brought up document preparers. So again, during this election year, things that I've seen in the office, and it's, from my point of view, it's so advantageous in terms of me providing information to people, because we have offices in different locations, so we see how cases are being treated, right? And what has been on the increase is and this is the pitfalls that a lot of people fall victim to, right? When you're filing for citizenship and you don't know your eligibility. So what I've seen, I've had probably close to a dozen cases like this year. It's identical. Somebody, they got their green card. This is like the typical fact pattern as to how it works. Person comes to the US, they get married, they get their green card, they divorce that person, then they move on to another person, right? Very typical. I'm sure if I was to say anybody to raise their hand, they know somebody who that's their trajectory, that's their fact pattern. So what I've seen now is when that person applies for citizenship because they have had their green card for either 3 years or 5 years, immigration now scales back and goes back to the first marriage and then say, okay, this first marriage, we're seeing some discrepancies here. We're seeing some things that weren't disclosed either from the first time they applied for the B1 visa. They realized that, oh, this person was actually not married or married to somebody in Jamaica and they didn't disclose that. So now they're saying that that was a misrepresentation. Or they say the first marriage was fake, right? And it's marriage fraud. And the second marriage, that person was in the picture the whole time. So you know what they've been doing this year? They denied the citizenship, stripped the person of their green card, and now they're in removal proceedings. Right? So if that person had gone to an attorney or done the research, they would have been able to do that due diligence and say, you know what, I think you should just ride with the green card. Just keep on renewing it every 10 years instead of facing this. Because I've had cases where people come to me and they want to file the citizenship and I'm looking through their background and I'm like, you know what, I do not recommend this. I do not advise this. And some people would take that advice and then some people would say to me, say, you know what, more about my money for my constitution. I'm sorry, go on. You know, I get it back, but go on and do what you want to do. You have a question?
It's a whole new fresh look now to see if you qualify for the final stage of the
Yes.
process.
When you're applying for your citizenship now, so there are two sides to it in an election year. Now, some of our clients, boom, we apply within 2-3 months to get an interview, and they're citizens in 2 to 3 months because what? They want the votes. They want more people to vote, right? But on the other side, they're taking deeper dives into, close that for me. They're taking deeper dives into the files. Another common one that I see is the people who they get their green card stripped is for women who they got pregnant during the marriage that they got their green card for, but they did not disclose it to the officer, or they told the officer that the child was the husband, and then they come to the citizenship and they already did their research and they want to do a paternity test. Once that paternity test comes back and that child is not theirs, because for citizenship, one thing that can get you denied is adultery. So if you have a child outside of the marriage, you are not eligible for citizenship. So these are the things that I like to educate people on, because I mean, yeah, you can Google things all you want, but unless you're in the trenches like myself, battling these different type of cases, seeing the different type of nuances, you won't really know. So definitely keep in mind, if you're applying for your citizenship this year, make sure that your green card process to get to the citizenship was tight, right? If you are eligible for citizenship and you know you're good, definitely do it, because we don't know if a Republican Party comes into power, if they're going to make limitations as to how you can become a citizen. So if you are eligible, the best thing is to contact an attorney so you can do a research and be honest, right? In every consultation that I do, I say we have a 99% approval rate for most cases, right? And the 1% that gets denied, of that 1%, 95% of that of the denials is as a result of clients not keeping it 100 with us, clients not sharing information with us, clients withholding information from us, and just not giving us the proper tools that we need to fight for them. right? So, election year, citizenship, make sure you can contact us for that number. I always share it on social media, that number that you can call to see if you are in removal proceedings or if you have a removal order, because trust me, if Mr. Trump comes in and you have a removal order, they are going to find you, because their goal is mass deportation, right? Because somehow they think immigrants are here to live off the country and create problems, which that's just 3% of people, right?
What is the process of you becoming somebody's attorney?
What is the process of somebody retaining us? It's easy. Call, set a consultation. We find out what strategy is necessary for your case. We tell you the price. You pay the deposit. You sign the retainer agreement, and that's it. That's it.
So I personally don't, well, based on what I've been through, I don't, persons, I'm Jamaican, and so persons usually say, well, just go away and just marry to somebody. And I really don't want to go that route, unless, of course, it is legitimate and I'm in love with somebody.
Yeah.
And so I opted to go through the school route, so I applied to do my master's, which I have been accepted and given
Congrats.
process, right? So the problem that I find I'm not a Google lawyer, but is the lack of information, especially when I was back in Jamaica. It's like, it's so difficult just to find. I can't rely on my family because they took the route of marriage. I'm not sure if it's whatever, but that's the route that they took. So how do I navigate this era? Because I'm going to do my master's. I have children and I don't want to put them, I don't want to disrupt their future because of any silly dream that I may have. So how I navigate the process from F1, change of status, to green card.
Okay, so that's a very specific question as to some of the topics that we'll be getting into. But very valid question. I get that question at least 20 times per week. How do I change my status without marriage? Right? Very, very common question, and there are several different routes that you can go. But I always started off by saying that there are two roads. So if you're in status versus out of status. If you are out of status, I always say that your chances, your options have become significantly reduced based on the way how immigration law is set up, right? Once you go out of status, and I always try to break it down so people can understand it for themselves, because I always told myself as an attorney, I don't want people to come before my desk and see me as this person who is going to be talking all sorts of things over their head and they don't understand how the process works for themselves. So the way how it works, right? If you enter the country under one status, which is a B1 or an F1, right? That's a non-immigrant status, right? That is your status. You have your I-94. Once CBD looks you up, that is your status. You are a non-immigrant, right? You have a certain amount of time allotted that you can stay in the country. Once you go over that amount of time that is allotted, you have no overstayed, so you have now lost that status, and you are gaining what they call unlawful presence. Unlawful presence, right? So look at it this way, right? Unlawful presence now turns into a hurdle. You cannot jump from a B1, B2 status or F1 status, and you have that hurdle of unlawful presence and jump back into like a work visa or a student visa or a religious visa. You can't. That's just a hurdle that unlawful presence creates, right? But they made concessions, right? They made options to get over that hurdle, but it's very few options. And those options, well, one is you get married to a United States citizen. You can do that and adjust your status, whether you are out of status or in status, or if you have a U.S. citizen child that is 21 years or older, that can petition for you. Or if you're eligible for asylum, you can do that, but it has to be filed within 1 year of being in the country. If you are the victim of a violent crime or certain types of crime and you are assisting law enforcement to prosecute the person, then that's another way that even if you're out of status, you can transition to an S visa, then from an S visa to another, right? So significantly limited once you go out of status and you have that hurdle to jump over. You can't just move from in status, then go out of status and move back into a temporary type of visa situation. Following me, everybody? All right, but if you are in status, right? If you are in status, you haven't overstayed, and for one, clarification for people who are on student visas, some people have the misconception that if you're on a student visa and they issue the visa to you for 5 years, right? But you dropped out of school, that's still out of status because you have to maintain a certain amount of credit hours to maintain your status. So like people don't understand that, think that, okay, I have 5 years here, I can stop going to school. No, it doesn't work like that. All right? So you're in status, that's great. You have options now. So I always say you have different paths. People don't know that if you have a good relationship with a church can petition for you for a religious visa, an R1 visa. If you want to start a business, right?
That's,
like yeah.
That is only if you're in status. Actually.
That's in your in status. So,
Yes,
so remember, once you go out of status, it's really like 3.
You got it.
Marriage, U.S. citizen child that's 21 years or older, asylum, or S visa, which is, no, U visa, sorry, if you are the victim of a crime. You can transition to these other visas that I'm talking about, such as sports visas, such as O1, the P1. You have the religious visa. If you want to invest or start a new company, there's the E2, there's the EB5. You know, your employer can now petition for you under an EB2, PERM, H1B, H2B, right? There are so many options, but you have to be in status. And I always say, you know, you definitely want to check your immigration status. If you're in removal proceedings, there's a number that you can call. Because if you have a removal order already out there against you, you are definitely going to be one of the first people that they're going to target. Can they just say, okay, you're on a program and cancel it? No, typically no. They can't just cancel your visa. But with this new administration, you just don't know. So, how do you protect yourself? Right now. Hello. Come on in, come on in, come on in.
And
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah. So, how do you protect yourself in 2024? One, you need to be honest with yourself and look at your immigration status and make sure it is right. If it's not right, you need to find out what are your options, like exactly what are your options, what those options look like, and what is the timeline to get that option, right? And how much it's going to cost. Or what do you have to do to make that option come to life, all right? The next thing that you have to do is if you're eligible for citizenship, definitely try to pursue that. But before you pursue citizenship, you need to look at your background to see if you applying for citizenship may be even detrimental to you. Because again, I was explaining to people that we've had numerous clients who they apply for citizenship, but because of the way how their green card was achieved, now they're stripping the citizenship and stripping the green card as well and putting you in removal proceedings. So you always want to be honest with yourself, honest with your attorney to really take a good look at the way how you enter the country, how you got your green card before you apply for citizenship.
Could you touch more on the T visa and if it is that you're out of status, if you qualify for that?
So, all right, so the T visa, so it's just like any other visa, right? If you are, okay, hold on. So you're asking if you can transition from a T visa being out of status? Yes, you can. Yeah, so that is also one of the very few visas as well such as the U visa, the S visa, and the T visa. And for confidentiality, I won't go into details as to the T visa, how it works. But it's definitely one of those visas that even if you're out of status, if you are the victim of certain type of crimes or human trafficking, etc., those are one of the visas that you can transition to if you're out of status. All right?
Good evening, everybody.
Good
Really
evening.
sorry to be late.
No, you're fine.
If you're here visiting and you overstay, you're not yet out of status. But
Hold on, you say overstay and
you're
not yet.
You're not yet out of status.
Okay, so you haven't overstayed.
No.
Okay.
And you want, how long does it take for you to get, if you want to marry someone, you have someone to marry, to get your visa? How long you have to be in the country to do that? And can someone from your country stop you from getting immigration status, from getting status here? Can someone from the country stop you? From your country?
So the second part, I'm not really understanding how that part works. But I'll answer the first part, right? So the first part is how long after entering the country can you file any immigration petition? And it's the 90-day rule, right? The 90-day rule is you can't file any type of petition until after 90 days. So if you enter the country January 1st and you already had somebody that you were dating and you're going to marry and you guys get married January 2nd, which is fine, you can get married at any time, but you would not be able to file that petition until 90 days. So it's 90 days.
Oh, so you can actually get married before the 90 days?
Yes, you can. And that's been a big misconception with a lot of people. They're thinking that they can, the 90-day rule applies to when you get married. No. It applies to when you file your actual immigration petition. Mm-hmm.
You have a parent that is supposedly a citizen before you were born. What do you have to do?
So that's a multi-tiered question. So if you have a parent that was a U.S. citizen before you were born, a lot goes into it if you wanted to receive an immigration benefit. If you were outside of the country, in order for you to get that citizenship, they would have had to petition for your green card. And then once you became 18, then you would automatically become a citizen. But you wouldn't just get citizenship just because you had a parent was citizen and you were outside of the country.
So it's a paternal parent. And how does birthright citizenship come into play as it relates to that?
So the only way you can get birthright citizenship is if you were born on U.S. soil. Yeah. All right. So hold on one second. I'm just moving through some of the topics that I had planned out for everybody. All right. So we went through what it looks like for immigration in an election year, right? So now one of the key things that I love doing in consultations is immigration strategies. A lot of people, they enter the US and they don't have a strategy. Sometimes the only strategy is, all right, I'm gonna get married to somebody, or they don't even have a plan. And I think once you have a plan and you have the right knowledge, you can get US citizenship or permanent residence without having to get a green card. For instance, perfect example is when someone comes to me. I've had a client that comes to me and they are in university, just like this person, right? And they're like, my goal is to eventually get my green card. How do I do that? So I'm like, well, it's a long-term plan, right? So say, we say, all right, you know what, you can start a business. You can start a business with $40,000, $50,000, right? And that would make you eligible for an E2 visa, right? E2 visa, you'll get that for 4 to 5 years, and you can renew it, but it does not lead to a green card, right? So how do you move from the E2 visa to another visa that would enable you to get a green card? So there are two types of people. So the ones that are married, I would say, all right, you know what? Have the husband start the business, right? The husband would get the E2 visa, have the business go for 2 months, and then the business can actually petition for the husband for a green card. Then once the husband gets the green card, then the husband can now petition for the wife. So sometimes it's a long-term play that you need to have to educate yourselves as to different ways. Also, like a person who comes in and, again, they're on a B1, B2 visa, right? They go to church. I say, hey, go to that pastor and say, hey, I am willing to work in the church for 20 hours a week, right, for minimal pay. You get an R1 visa, right? You stay on the R1 visa for 2 years, and then after those 2 years, then that same church can now petition for an EB4 religious visa, which is a green card. So that's 3 years. It's a 3-year plan. So you plan it out properly, right? So there are different strategies that you can employ once you have the right knowledge and you seek the right information. There are different steps that you can take, right? Even with asylum, right? If you enter the country through the border, you can file for asylum, right? A lot of times I tell my clients that, I always keep it 100 with my clients. I'm like, your case has a less than 50% chance of being successful, right? But what does it do? It enables you to say, okay, you know what? I don't encourage it, but it's just a reality. I say, well, you can get a work permit and it gives you some time in the country to know you're able to build a business and have that business gain some type of status for you. Because another thing in the US that other people don't understand is if you start a business in the US, it has a different status from you. So it has its own identity. So you can be out of status and you have a business that you can operate legally and hire other people legally, right? You just can't work in the business. But you can manage, start it, and the business will have its own identity.
So you say that they need to get an EIN number?
Yeah, so you have to get an EIN.
Identification number?
Yeah.
Do they get the individual banker, or do they need to get the 98?
No, so in a situation like that, they need to get an ITIN number.
Oh, an individual tax identification.
Yeah, an ITIN number.
And you only can get an item number, sorry.
Okay, I was asking this because my husband is Welsh, and I've been copyrighted by the United States Copyright.
You've been what?
Copyrighted
Okay.
by the United States Copyright.
Okay.
My husband passed away.
Okay.
So I'm in a judicial district court.
Okay.
But because I'm a female, my case has just been sitting there because they said that in the judicial district court, it has to be a male to go before the woman because she's an ungoverned woman because her husband is deceased.
Okay.
How does that work? I'm copyrighted to the United States copyright. I don't have a...
Honestly, I don't have enough information to be confident enough to give you knowledge on that.
What if you're on, for instance, a J1 visa, and the 2-year requirement? Yeah, the 2-year rule. If you apply, if you get married to somebody after that 2-year, is it that you're required to go back home and come back if you can get a green card or something of the sort, or you can get the green card within the United States?
Yeah, so with the J1 visa, so he's asking about J1. I don't know if anybody know about J1. So with some of the J1 visas, right, you get a stamp that says you have a 2-year home requirement. 2-year home requirement means that upon the expiration of that visa, you have to return to your home country for 2 years, right? So there are exceptions. You can file a waiver, right? You have different type of waivers that you can file. The most popular one is the no objection, right? If you get married, right? Yes, you can adjust your status, but you have to have an approved J1 waiver before they issue that green card.
So whether or not it said 2 year doesn't apply, if you pass 2 years.
So if the 2-year rule doesn't apply, you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. Another
Yeah.
person, if you do have a J1 visa and you get married to a green card holder, is it that you're still required to go home before you get your green card?
So that's a good question, which when it comes down to strategy, I can explain on that some more. You know, there's like a bunch of people on social media that run me down on this and say that if you get married to somebody on a green card, it's the same process as if you get married to somebody in a citizen, who's a citizen, and you couldn't be any further from the truth, right? So if you get married to someone and they are a green card holder, right, and they are not a U.S. citizen, you always have to ask, how long does it take for you to become a citizen? Because here's the thing, the only way that you can adjust your status within the country if you got married to a green card holder is if you are in status the whole time, right? And then you're also going to have to wait till that visa becomes available, because that preferential category, right, it still goes to the NVC. It still goes to the NVC. Then when it becomes current, that's when you can actually file for your adjustment of status, or if you're outside the country, cancel the process. So for you, if you're on a J1 and you marry somebody that is a green card holder, yeah, yes, you can, right? But only if you stay in status for the entire time, right? Whereas if it's a citizen, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're in status or out of status.
One more question. The Vawa, if you and your spouse have you ever lived together before?
Yeah. Okay. So hold on. So that's something that I'll come to. Vawa is a whole other topic by itself that I will come to. All right. So we went over immigration strategies. So I wanted to touch on immigration, business, and investment visas, right? Anybody here can tell me any type of investment visa? Most can tell me one. E2, all right. So there's the E2, there's the EB5, and there's also the L1, right? And what a lot of people don't understand is like, okay, you might be here and you're saying, man, that does not apply to me, but you know what? It can apply to a potential employer. It can apply to somebody who you may want to do business with, and that can assist you or somebody in your family, right? So the E2 business visa, right, as I was explaining earlier, is you can invest in a new or existing business, right, to where you are at least 50% owner. And the investment that you make is irrevocable, meaning you can't put it in and take it out back, right? So we've done E2 visas for as low as, we did one the other day for a young lady for a nail salon, and the investment was a little bit under 50,000, like 48,000, and it can go all the way up to 200,000 if you involve real estate or it's based on the type of business. So from a strategy standpoint, it's still a good visa. Like say you're here and you're on a business visa or a student visa and you need more time, you can find a business partner, go 50%, right? And you can get on that E2 visa and know you have extended stay for 5 years, right? Hold on 1 second. So the other one after that now is the EB5 visa, which is different. You have to invest either 800,000 or $1,050,000 into a new or existing business that will create 10 jobs for American citizens or permanent residents, right? But the good thing about that is that it goes, you directly get a green card, right? And what we've been doing in the firm is, say for instance, say you own a home and you are able to buy more homes, you can actually create a property management company that will own those homes, and the amount of money that you spend, it goes towards that $1,050,000, and then now you have a green card. So that's another strategy. Like say you're here on a J1 visa, you can have your spouse do that type of petition and have you as a derivative. So there are many different ways. The L1 visa, like say for instance, if you have a business in Jamaica or a business in France or a business outside of the US, you are able to start a subsidiary company in the US and transfer into the US on an L1 visa, and then 2 years later file for your green card. So those are the different type of business visas, and I like pushing this because culturally, a lot of us as immigrants, we just have one or two ways in our mind that we can get a green card or get extended stay in the US. And I like to push the business ones because a lot of them don't know it's possible. Even with the EB2 NIW, that has become very, very popular lately, where it's one of the very few green cards that you can petition for yourself without an employer, right? So for the EB2 NIW, meaning it's a second category employment-based national interest waiver, you don't have to have an employer, you don't have to have a labor certification, but if you have an advanced degree or you are an entrepreneur and the business that you have created has significant impact, you can do a self-petition for your green card. There are only two type of green card petitions like that. It's the EB2 NIW or an EB1 if you're an extraordinary athlete or entertainer, where you can just self-petition without a family member or an employer. So those are options also that I always have to tell people to try to break this myth that there's only one or two ways that you can come to the United States and get a green card. All right? Yeah. What was the question? Okay. Yes. Yes. Now, no matter what, that's the one visas. I mean, there are certain type of visas that no matter how you slice it, you still have to adhere to the restrictions that they put on it, such as, and another visa like that is a crew visa. If you get a visa as a person that works on a ship or a plane, you can adjust your status from that visa. Just like the J1 visa, you have to get the waiver, and there's no way around it. Asylum, yeah. Yeah, asylum, yeah.
Suppose you're here before the pandemic and the pandemic left you here, can you petition for yourself? No?
No. Unfortunately, yeah.
What do you have to do? You have an IT number, you work, you pay tax, but you're overstayed because you're here from the pandemic.
Okay, yeah. So you know, it's the same analysis. So, sorry, what's your name? Sandra. All right. So Sandra asked a good question, and I've gotten this question before. Is if you got stuck here during the pandemic, is there any way that you can, and obviously you have overstayed, is there any way that you can just transition to another visa? And the answer is no. A lot of my potential clients ask is like, say, how do you set up a consultation, right? And you call and you book the consultation. So you will get the option to book the consultation directly with me, which is virtually or in person. You can book it with another one of our attorneys or immigration specialists. But what I always like to tell people is I train the entire team. So we're a team of like 16 people, right? With all these offices, sometimes my clients expect me to be the one that is hands-on building the case from scratch. Every single case, that wouldn't be the most efficient way to run a law firm, right?
Because I think because you're the face of the law firm, everybody will.
Correct, yeah. But the way our team works, I train the entire team. We have weekly meetings going over every single case in the firm, from strategies to what's outstanding to what's not outstanding. But you will always have a paralegal that is assigned to you to assist you with putting together the evidence, putting together personal statements, etc., etc. Then before it goes out, then it goes through my final review with with the other attorneys in the firm. So that's the process as to how it works internally, right? Huh? Yeah, what?
So she got a message for you or something?
She had a message.
Okay. A question? Okay. If you're on TPS, a TPS is temporary protected status. You have some countries such as Haiti, Venezuela, Somalia,
Yeah.
several countries that are on TPS. So what the TPS allows people to do is they can stay in the US and they won't be deported, even if they entered illegally or even if they overstayed. So the biggest question that a lot of people on TPS have is like, what can you do? How do you get out of TPS? So yes, you can start businesses. Yes, you can adjust your status, right? Yes, you can file for other family members as well, right? So to answer your question, yes, you can start a business, but you can't just jump from TPS to a green card. You have to jump from TPS to something else, right? Because you are now under a temporary protected status.
Correct. Yeah.
All right?
They wanted to go, but now that they're gone, there's so many unanswered questions. He went to apply for his U.S. passport and he can't get through. He can't get it. So I have the letter, but it's 2 pages. I won't read it, but it's basically saying under the diplomacy immunity, you're not able to get it. And I guess when he went into the military and they flew him to Middle East and all these places, they don't look at that. So now I think what I heard was he needs to get maybe he have his son file for him.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, so and we've encountered that in the firm. It's so unique, and basically what she's saying is a family member entered the country under diplomatic immunity. So if your parents were diplomats and you're in the US, one thing that you give up is that you cannot get US citizenship while you're here, so or a US passport. So what's going to have to happen is that person is going to have to transition from that status, drop the diplomatic status, and then do like an adjustment of status through either a child or a spouse.
But she said he was born here, so he was born here.
Yeah, but he came under diplomatic immunity. Yeah. Yeah.
What's the longest should a Vawa case take?
Okay, so I'm about to get into Vawa soon. All right, so the next thing that we're transitioning to is what has immigration been for people in New York, right? New York is its own ecosystem. It's very different immigration-wise from Florida and from other states. I've learned and I've realized over the years that with each state, the immigration cases are very similar, right? And they're treated as such. So what I've realized, what is different in New York from Florida and other states that I do practice in New York, is that New York because New York it's very immigrant friendly. So you're able to have an ID, even if you're out of status or not. You are able to get a driver's license. You are able to work more freely, whether you're in status or out of status. Yeah, but what I've realized, it creates a false sense of reality. So a lot of New York immigrants have this false sense that, all right, I'm here, I'm good, I don't need to take steps to secure or to fix my immigration status, right? Which couldn't be any more false, because once you leave New York, then you have issues. Or if you try to go back to your home country, then you have problems, right? Another thing is there are a lot of cases that have built the New York immigration courts are based on asylum. Asylum is significantly more favorable in New York than it is Florida or some of the other southern states. They are way more stringent in prosecuting and approving asylum cases in New York, right? The next thing with New York is I've gotten the most Vawas out of New York versus any other state. The only other city that can rival New York that I've seen so far in Vawas is Panama City Beach. And that's a whole different story.
And one question for you. I don't know if you could assist me with this. So I have, friends in the, in the immigrant community. So I wanted to know if generally as an attorney and as a practitioner, if you find that depending on where you see you file your cases or where your office is, depending on where different adjustment, asylum, depending on those locals, whether it's North Dakota, Tennessee, if you find because of the state, whether it's blue, red, purple, if you find that affects.
100%. Did you want to speak on that, Leslie?
Yeah, so we know, and we appreciate the question actually, USCIS has several divisions and locations, and that has a lot to do also with the population of the state and within the city. Some of the cities, they have more immigration officers that are working there, and it also depends on the actual it's a lot involved with the politics as well. Whether it's a democratic, city, county, and also state. So we do find that has a lot to do with it, but most of it is the population. And the reason why Mr. Clarke, for example, Vawa is the best example when it comes to the adjustment of status. Panama City is actually a rival for, compared to New York City. And a lot of divisions filed within New York because of the population. And of course, there's a lot of Caribbeans, a lot of Hispanics. So, they see that there's a high volume of cases. So they hire more officers to work within those facilities. Yeah.
But what I've discovered too, New York has the most backlog in cases than many other different states. I know a lot of people that have filed for petitions, it takes years and years for them to get the case processed.
Sure.
You mean adjustment of status?
Yeah, it's just the backlog. Like they have so many.
It used to be faster before, but like for example, the first step in an adjustment of status is a petition process, right? If it's a marriage, you can wait on that I-130, that first step of the adjustment of status, up to 13 months. What they're doing now compared to many years ago is that they're actually giving you the green card a little faster, even though if it's coming with that 2-year removal condition that you need to remove those conditions within a certain amount of time, prior to turning the 2 years with the green card. But at least you can get that green card sooner, be able to travel, and other things that we learned in the past for 3 years, I would say maybe 2 years under the precedent that we have now, is that the travel documents, the adjustment of status with that work permit, which is the first benefits within an adjustment of status, and that travel document is actually delivered to you sooner. It used to take 10, 11, 12 months. Now we have ways to expedite it so it can come to you sooner. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What department did you go to get like your marriage certificate? Where do you go?
That would be civil, the county where you got married, the county records, they would always have a copy for you there.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Even if you, the link, I was born on a reservation.
And you got married where?
Here, my husband is Welsh. He's Caucasian.
Yeah, you can get it on. There's an actual line for that online.
See, they told me that it was on the private side, and I don't know what that means.
But they have the actual clerk of court. They have sources that you can click on, and it'll tell you it'll go to a different division.
Oh. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So again, just to button up what Leslie said, definitely where your case is and where you file your case it's going to be treated differently. You know, as Leslie said, if it's in a state or a county that's highly populated, its chances are it's going to take longer. Or if it's in a metropolitan city where they have more USCIS officers, then you may see a faster processing time. All right. Yeah, so diving into immigration in New York, again, just to recap, it's Asylum and Vawas. Those are the most popular cases that I've seen coming out of New York. And I think it's like a city cultural thing, right? The other thing that I noticed is that New York has so many document preparers, right? People who are, I mean, I've met some document preparers that are extremely good at what they do. But I always caution people, a document preparer, if you get into certain types of jams, like you get into removal proceedings or you have a denial and you need to file a motion, that person can disappear on you. I've seen document preparers where they give legal advice that is 100% incorrect. And the biggest thing that I wanted to leave you with when it comes down to a document preparer that I would love for you to share with people. Yes, it's cheaper and you're getting the stuff done, but this is what I've seen. When I get a case from someone who they use a document preparer in the past, right? What that person did, they may have submitted stuff on your behalf, right? That was incorrect or that was fraudulent, and you got a quick work permit and you're good. But then now everything is straight and I am doing a legitimate case for you now. Immigration is going to pull that old case and they're going to look at the information that you submitted and then now compare it to the information that I'm going to submit, and then they're either not going to move it or they're going to deny the whole thing or create more problems where I'm either going to have to file a waiver or something because misrepresentations were made. You know, there was this thing going on where there was this big thing going on in Panama City Beach where the document preparers were filing this thing called a 589.
Yeah.
They were filing a 589 for people who were out of status, which made it appear like they could get back in status, and then they would file a random work permit, right? So when you have that information being filed where you are signing something that there are misrepresentation or there are lies on it, and you get a temporary relief, a temporary benefit, when it comes time to do the real thing, they're going to say, hey, I mean, you did this in the past. Anything you filed with immigration, whether you know about it or not, once your name and signature was on it, they're going to hold you to it, right? And I can even segue with that point about doing things the wrong way the first time, and it comes back to bite you, is the marriage fraud, right? It breaks my heart a lot of times when I have potential clients that come in, people, and I see it in New York as well, people in their 40s and 50s, been here for 30 plus years, and they cannot change their status because when they came here at 21, 22, they did a marriage and they admitted that there was marriage fraud, or the spouse somehow said that they paid them to get married. And once you have a marriage fraud on your document, once that officer labeled that this is a marriage fraud, you will never get another green card. It is like a 1% chance that you can overcome it. So I always tell people, do it right the first time. Make sure you get a proper person, because if you have somebody doing your paperwork from them yard and on them couch, they're going to turn over that money really, really fast and say, no man, you're good. You're going to be good. And you may be good for a little bit, but it's going to come back and bite you. When you use an attorney is like the bar of that state holds that attorney accountable, where them can't just take your money and just leave and disappear, or send in fraudulent information or things that they know is fraudulent, and put you in a worse position than you were before you started. So definitely something that I wanted to share, that information. No matter what you submit to immigration, it's going to be there forever. I've seen people lose their green cards because when they were in their home country and they're doing their visa application, their B1 visa application, and them say, all right, they have somebody fill it out, and the person say, all right, you know what? You'll have a better chance if you put that you're married. Right? So you put that you're married to this person. And this is a classic case. I've seen it like 3 or 4 times. They put on their B1, B2 visa that they are married, right? So then now they get the B1, B2 visa, and they enter the US, then they actually get married to somebody else and get their green card. But that person also did the same thing. That spouse who they said that they were married to, but put on their visa application that they're single, right? So now the officer gets both, and they're able to merge the two and say, well, somebody lied. And then now both cases are stopped, and they have to figure out who was the dishonest person. And sometimes they just say, both of you were dishonest. And then now, pardon? 80%. I've seen it happen a lot of times, more often than you would think. And especially in this era, yes, I see it happen a lot.
A lot, yeah.
So what if someone married to you, legally married, remarried, not a business married or anything, but they did not finish your visa and they stopped and married somebody else
I don't understand.
and
Sorry.
filed for it? What if somebody married you, remarriage, not business marriage, and they did not finish you did not finish getting, they filed for you, but you did not get your documents. They did not finish because the last interview they did not turn up, but they stopped filing and filed for somebody else, marry somebody else and file.
Yeah, well, what the officer will do is they're going to inquire. They're going to inquire into that first marriage. They're going to inquire the first marriage and figure out if it was real, or figure out if misrepresentations were made. So again, yeah. So I see a lot of that in New York. You know, I mean, New York, for me, I've met the most people who have been here out of status for like 30, 40 years. And you look at their immigration trail, their immigration background, a lot of things were submitted either incorrectly, a lot of misinformation, and they're still in the problem. So in terms of Vawa now, as you know, Vawa is a very useful tool, right? It's one of the strongest mechanisms that's out there from an immigration standpoint, right? So just to give you the basics on Vawa, and you have different types of Vawas as well. So you have Vawa if you were married to a United States citizen, right? And they abused you. And that abuse under the Biden administration has actually been expanded, meaning it can cover not just physical abuse, mental, psychological, financial abuse. If you have a partner who refuses to file your immigration paperwork, that's a form of abuse. If you have a partner that is using your immigration status against you, that is a form of abuse as well. Under Biden administration, they made it more flexible, such as they don't require you to even live together in the marriage, whereas previously, in the previous administration, they would require you to prove that, yes, you were in a bona fide marriage and you live together. Hold on. Yes, you were in a marriage. Yes, you live together. And then they go on to say, okay, you were abused. But under Biden, they made it more flexible, where they said, yeah, you don't even have to live together. I did one, I think one of our most successful Vawa cases, I think this year or last year, was the lady got married in Jamaica, entered the country, and the guy never come and pick her up at the airport and never heard from him again. So they never lived together, they never had any type of assets or did anything at all together, and we were able to get that approved under this administration. Yeah. So that's Vawa, and the neat thing about Vawa is that it is a self-petition, meaning you don't need a spouse to sign any type of documentation, right? So let's dive deeper into VAWA also.
Can you expedite VAWA?
No. No. Expedite VAWA. Yeah. So VAWA is so you can only file VAWA up to 2 years after you have divorced from your spouse. If you're still married, yeah, you can, but you only have 2 years, right? The other thing about VAWA that it does is if you had an illegal entry, you can file a VAWA and adjust your status in the country. So just remember this. So if somebody entered the country, illegal entry or uninspected entry. So a lot of people don't understand that if you enter the country through the border and you do not have a legal or inspected entry where you get a stamp, even if you get married to a United States citizen, you will not be able to adjust your status. You would have to leave, return to your home country, file a waiver, and re-enter. However, if you entered through the border, got married to a United States citizen, and somehow it didn't work out because of abuse, and you were to file a VAWA, you would be able to adjust your status in the US without going home. The other thing that VAWA can do is because there are certain crimes that if you have committed in your home country or in the US, it makes you ineligible to adjust your status. VAWA actually waives one of those crimes. Yeah. So I've seen it, so like a lot of people don't understand, like say for instance, if you're in a situation and you are being abused, and I see it with so many of my clients where they stay in relationships being tormented, tortured, mentally, physically, just because they say, I have to get this green card, I have to stick it out. No, there is a way out of it. The next layer of VAWA is if you have a child. So if you come here with your child, and your child is a US citizen, and your child is 21 years old, or you have been with them up to 21 years old, and you don't have your status, and your child is abusing you, then you can file a VAWA for your child abusing you. And it works the other way around. If you have a parent that has been abusive to you, mentally, psychologically, you can file a VAWA as well. If you are, say for instance, and we did this one recently, if you have a child with a US citizen, but you are not married to that person, and you witness that US citizen abusing the child, you can file a VAWA off of that as well. So very, very multifaceted tool that I've been able to utilize in New York, because there are so many different scenarios that I've realized that come from this city that is completely different from the other cities that we practice out of. But my number one thing when I became an attorney, an immigration attorney, my number one goal has always been is to provide people with the right information.
Mr. Clarke, I'm sorry.
Hold on. Huh?
We have just 10 more minutes for questions and that's it.
Okay.
Maybe like
All
8
right.
more minutes we have.
Okay, all right. 10 minutes for Q&A.
My question is,
For questions.
I spoke to a representative of your firm recently, and was letting me know that the fact that you can't file a VAWA if you have never lived with the person. How true is that?
You can't file a VAWA if you have never. Yeah, so there are different layers to it. So with VAWA, we'd have to examine the unique cases. The unique facts to your case.
For instance, like you're married to a US citizen in another country. The petition started in the country, but you enter the country on another visa. For instance, like a visiting visa. So the postal visa didn't wasn't fully completed, but you enter the country on another visa. You never live with the person in the US, and it's still from filing a Vawa, period.
So it's very unique because typically with Vawa, they say they want the abuse to have taken place in the US. Yeah. So like that's where the nuance. So with the person who I gave the example where they never lived together, she came and the guy disappeared.
We're finishing now.
That type of abuse, she entered the US and the trauma, huh? No, she entered on a B1, B2, right? And the guy just disappeared and abandoned the marriage on US soil and they never lived together. So in a situation like that, it would work. But if the abuse didn't take place in the US, then you know it's a very hard challenge there. So again, that's something very fact specific that we'd have to comb through details.
Okay, so we have 2 more questions
Yeah.
because they're having another event, so they need
Yeah.
to set in the room.
It can take up to 3 years, 3+ years, yeah, anywhere between 2 to 3 years to get the green card. I mean, you would get your work permit and travel document within a year.
Mr. Clarke, I was telling her, this lady right here, that once you come on a visa, once you pass the time that the visa is valid for you to stay for, you become unlawful. So she was saying that if Trump is in power and if you're unlawful, if you can get reported, I said, yeah, because you spoke about that earlier.
Because he was not really sure. I didn't really want to go with the visa expired, meaning your outer status, you expired your 6 months.
You become unlawful.
You're not unlawful.
Unlawful, yeah.
Right.
So Trump can deport you even if you come here straight?
You're legal.
Because
entry.
yeah,
And
yeah,
lawful.
yeah. So because you're now here legally, so even if you have a 10-year visa
Right.
and you enter in January and they say, hey, you have to leave by June 1st, on June 2nd,
You're not unlawful.
you are now unlawful. And yes,
Should he become
Yeah.
in the office, he will want to deport you. He's going
but with the deportation process, you still have to go through the court. Yeah. Yeah. So you can. So like even in even a month after that, if you were to get, so ICE could come and pick you up and say, hey, you overstayed your visa and you're still here. Yeah, I mean, in New York, yes, I've seen it happen, but it's more likely to happen in other southern states.
But the thing is, in New York, you can't legally threaten someone about their search. You can't even ask somebody about their
Correct. 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 In Florida, you can, but not New York. In Florida, you can, but not New York. Yeah, you can sue, but you know what? You can still get deported.
We need to understand that USCIS, US laws is federal. So
Yeah.
it's in every state the same, but to fall into the deportation processing, you also have to violate some kind of rules and things that, it's a scenario by scenario. This is why if you have more details, questions about that, I would say individual consultation because every case is different.